On this week's show, we're discussing Assassin's Creed Shadows is here, and Chris managed to play it early. Atomfall reviews are dropping, and PlayStation may have a brand new studio in the works. All that, much more on this week's GamerGuild Podcast. Good game, everyone. Welcome back to the GamerGuild Podcast, your weekly show where we round up all the week's video game news and stories for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on GamerGuild.com, on YouTube.com/GamerGuildTV, and up there in the digital cloud on your podcast preference of choice. Your podcast players for this week are myself and the arcane rogue, Mr. Chris.
I'm hungover.
You're hungover?
Yeah.
On a school day?
On a school night, yeah. And I'm probably, and we're going out drinking tomorrow as
Here
well.
we
So what a wild life I lead.
So you're going to be hungover on Sunday as well?
Yeah. I mean, I won't get too much into it, but my hotel did me dirty to a point where there's 2 bottles of water there. No, that would have been great. Got back, my usual, drink plenty of water, have some paracetamol, and generally, if you have an okay sleep, I'm fine. I'm okay, a bit tired, but okay. Got back at whatever o'clock in the morning after probably 10 pints or something, went and watched the footy with my work colleagues, had a good couple of drinks, celebrated somebody's birthday, etc. Went to a gaming bar, which there was a picture in our Discord I posted as well. Went to one of the NQ64 bars, which we love so much. And got back, went to drink said water. Both bottles were fizzy water.
Oh.
Yeah.
What savage gets fizzy water?
So just like that, I went from being prepared and everything to it's too late, nowhere's open, I'm fucked. So I had my paracetamol, I had a little bit of tap water, but you know when you're like you don't trust tap water outside of like your home environment where you know it's safe to drink.
Well, you in like the northeast of England, were you?
It's still you never quite know.
No,
being abroad's taught me not to drink tap water. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Too cautious. But yes, I'm a bit groggy. I'm just pulling around after some food, but did some gaming, all things said and done, but feeling okay.
Yeah,
feeling
good night
okay.
though?
Yeah, great night, always. And tomorrow when we're out with friends will be even better, no doubt.
I'll hold you to that. Oh. I just find it funny how I can tell you hungover, just you had the glass of wine and it's like, oh, that's so good.
Oh,
tap water. But we do have a gaming podcast to get into. And so before we get into it, make sure if you haven't already, you hit that bell icon, like the video, and subscribe to the channel so keep in the loop of all fantastic content here at GamerGuildTV, such as this very show goes up every single Monday. And we've actually had 2 other shows go up this week, Chris. You played Assassin's Creed Shadows, which, do you want to save that for the news section? Because it is like the first story.
Yeah, there's a first look up on the channel. I got into it. I've obviously played it off camera a little bit as well. But yeah, it is pretty much the big news story of the week. So yeah, I'll save it for that. I've not really played anything else otherwise. So you've been playing stuff though?
I have. I played Pokemon Blue, which I think might be the first time in over a decade I've actually played Pokemon Blue.
Wow. It's probably longer for me. I think the last time I played Yellow, not Blue, was... I think I picked up a DS or something, or a 3DS, maybe a couple of years ago, and then played through it. And then the Let's Go series came out, which was kind of the retelling of the same thing for the Switch. So yeah, but not much. I think I put my red cartridge in my original Game Boy, and it still works. I've still got my original squad lined up.
Really?
Sealed in plastic. Yeah, I was surprised the battery still worked after like how many years now? Probably 30 plus, right? Well, coming up 30.
Yeah, I want to say it's like 97, was it?
Yeah. So yeah, it's getting on a bit. So I'm surprised it worked, but it'll die one day.
One day. But that is not this day. But no, I was playing Pokemon Blue. I was like thinking about I want to do a video or something like what do I play? And it's like we've been doing this podcast now for about 5 years and we haven't actually played any Pokemon on the channel.
No.
The closest we got was Power World.
it's practically the same thing, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking, where do I start with playing Pokemon on the channel? So I figured let's just go back to the original start with Pokemon Blue. Mm-hmm. Which I think I played Blue before I played Red, which is why I went for Blue.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And I did appreciate the overlay that you'd made for yourself as well. It's a good use of the space, considering obviously the dimensions of the original game are very small and pixelated in terms of resolution. So yeah, very good use of the...
playing around with a bit because it's like I wanted to look good, and to be honest, the reason is it's not live isn't actually anything to do with the overlay and the fact that in the video I've got the what Pokemon in my party popping in and out on the overlay. It's entirely down to my memory of the game, especially the early hours being quite grindy. Yeah. And what makes a brilliant stream is not me walking up and down and saying patch of grass for 20 minutes to get my Pokemon from level 5 to level 10 so I can actually do anything in the early game.
Yeah, you know what always surprises and shocks me is, when you have your squad list in the inventory menu, how none of them look like the actual animals they're supposed to be. It's like one's a giant dragon creature and it looks like a little mouse in the actual animation, or some of the drawings from behind during battle. Dun, 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 and then it's like, what the hell am I looking at? That's a tree, not an animal. It's so weird.
At least the sprites from behind are meant to look like the Pokemon from behind because it was made for the original Game Boy and there's so limited memory space on it. I don't think they had the space to actually give little sprites in the menus. So that's why I think there's about maybe 5 or 6 just sprites that they use for all 150 Pokemon.
Yeah. It's limitations of the time.
Yeah. But despite that, the music is incredible.
Oh, yeah. If you want some absolute classic retro 8-bit music, then... Is it 8-bit? Yeah, 8-bit, right?
I think it is 8-bit, yeah.
The tunes are so good. So good. I've been humming them all day. All I did was drop in and listen to a little bit of the stream, and still it was now it's that earworm. It's in my head now.
But yeah, as I said, I decided to pre-record rather than do it live, just so things I can edit out me just grinding, because that's boring. That's fair. Anything other than Assassin's Creed, Chris, that you've been playing?
No, I've just been really busy with work this week, so me and the wife played a little bit more Split Fiction, I think, at the beginning of the week, but then it's just been work, childcare stuff, and work. So, and then this weekend's going to be consumed pretty much by drinking and seeing family. So yeah, it's I know we said there was a couple of folks in our Discord chat. If you're not part of that, links and everything in the description below. But everyone was saying Assassin's Creed comes out, and then we've got Atomfall next week, and then the South of Midnight, and then Doom's just around the corner. Not including things like Days Gone Remastered, also less than 4 weeks away now, and it just seems like the amount of games we're being hit with at the beginning of it. Remember when the start of the year was quiet? Yeah, you got no big releases between January all the way through to maybe summer if you were lucky.
It's a shame that some of these games aren't spaced out, because I think now they feel like, at least for me, they're getting in their own way. I'm not going to be able to play all these. I feel like I've probably had to make a decision to not play any more of Avowed, because I don't know when I'll get a chance to play it.
Yeah, same.
I'm currently playing through Indiana Jones. I'm getting towards the end, I think. I've just got to Sukhothai, which I think is the last main area.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so
wink, wink.
I don't think I'm that far off finishing Indiana Jones. I do want to play Assassin's Creed Shadows, but that's going to be a bit later for me. I'm going to wait till my girlfriend finishes it first, and then I'll probably jump in at that point.
Yeah, it's that's the big not concern, I guess, but the big titles that would normally reserve themselves for the October, November, Christmas times are we'll just come out in March now. So you've got Monster Hunter last month, or the start of this month. Now Assassin's Creed Shadows, and like you said, there's such a pipeline coming up. You do wonder sometimes when we say PlayStation, where's your first party? Nintendo, where's your first party? It's you don't really need them. You could literally stop the entire games industry now, and you would have enough games to play for the rest of your life happily.
You know what the problem I'm having at this point in time is with Xboxes. You know how much I want an Xbox equivalent of the Portal, and I know there's Steam Decks and stuff, but the way of a price for it I don't want the full functionality of a Steam Deck or an I&E, or we've talked about that at death. it's like there's so many Xbox games coming out, and I'm looking at it going, Xbox is logistically more complicated to play than me because I like to just sit on the couch with my Portal. But then I also don't want to rebuy games that I already have an Xbox because I don't want Indiana Jones on PlayStation just for the sake of having it on PlayStation.
Oh yeah,
that's
another one for me.
That's something I could be tempted in the future in a few years' time if it was like down to like £20 to go. You know what? I'll pick it up, but not especially after I've just played on Xbox. So I don't know what I'm going to be playing next after Indiana Jones because I'd rather switch back to playing something on PlayStation, but then nothing's coming out on PlayStation.
Have you persevered anymore with Split Fiction? You had time to chip away at that?
Not much, just between when my girlfriend's shifts haven't lined up nicely.
Yeah. Life, man. Life.
Yeah, it is. And then she's now playing Assassin's Creed, so that's...
So she's gone for 100 plus hours.
Yeah, pretty much. She's probably glad you're taking me out drinking tomorrow, so she has some peace that she plays.
Ah, full day. Could you imagine? The dream, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. But then she's back on work on Sunday, so it's probably going to be like midweek before we get a chance to play again.
So it's a hangover and gaming day for you Sunday then.
Yeah, I've got some jobs and stuff to do. But anything else you've been playing before we get into this show?
No, obviously we put a pause on The Last of Us this week for the aforementioned Assassin's Creed Shadows and Pokemon to kind of break it up a little bit. But I think we want to get into the thick of that from this week onwards, just so we can have that wrapped up by the time Season 2 of The Last of Us airs, which is about 3 weeks away now. So it's imminent. It's imminent. So want to get on that. But no, not really. Going to get into some I'll literally be playing Assassin's for listeners, for future listeners as well. I'll literally be just playing Assassin's Creed probably now for many, many moons. So
for the next 100 hours. Yep. Well, in that case, Chris, would you like to introduce us to
the graciously gathered Gamer Guild Gazette, a.k.a. The News.
The News. And as always, the news is brought to you by our wonderful guild heroes, which you can join for as little as 99p over on the YouTube channel. And you get early access to shows such as Pokemon Blue, which I don't know if you noticed this, Chris. I accidentally put up for members for a whole 2 minutes.
I did notice it went up for members first, and I thought, that's an interesting approach for our weekly live stream. Yeah. And then, obviously, I was drunk, so I also didn't really notice.
Well, the reason it went up about 9:30 rather than about 8 o'clock, just purely for I was editing the video and I had to render it out, and it just didn't get it done in time. And then the way I accidentally set it was, I set it to go live at 9:30, but I accidentally hit the from members to public rather than just from private to public. So members got it for, I think, for like 2 or 3 minutes. Early access, guys. It still counts.
Yeah. There's something to be said about it. Yeah. There's something to be said about it. I did want to point out as well.
Yeah, go for it.
Sure, go on.
I was going to say I'm gonna try and record as much Pokemon Blue when I get a chance here and there, and when things go on the channel, they'll go up live for members. But for non-members, I'll be putting them up when it makes more sense for the channel.
So there you go. What a time to become a member. I wanted to do a special shout out this week. I was digging through some of our audio feeds, those dirty freeloaders out there, which we love so much. But I wanted to point out a few locations from our dirty freeloaders, because I had a look at the stats recently, and some of our listeners span the entire planet, Richie. It always shocks me that people listen from so far away, freely, might I add. But I want to shout out, there's a couple of listeners in Dublin. Shout out to Dublin in, I want to say Leinster, it might be. It's spelt weird, like we spell Leicester. Or Bicester, so it's like one of them. Tower Hamlets, no idea where Tower Hamlets is, but if you're listening, possibly it's one of them. Tower Hamlets, it's one of the little hamlets near around a tower somewhere. Shelton, Connecticut. Shout out to our listeners in Connecticut. Don't know what idea where Shelton is, but that's one. Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire. St. Louis in Missouri. So a lot of friends over stateside as well. We've got a couple of listeners in Copenhagen.
Nice.
Got a couple of listeners in Paris, in France as well. Bonjour. London, of course, and Nottingham, UK is some of our top cities where people listen to. We've generally got a 50-50 split between the US, and the UK, and then sprinkled throughout Canada, Europe, and other cities. A couple of listeners in Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, Sweden. So it was interesting. It's quite rare that I dive in and look at this stuff, but I thought I'll look at the last couple of episodes and just see where our roadmap is. Pleasantly surprised. So I thought I'd give them a shout out because they do listen along. They are part of our audience. Obviously, we don't really get interaction from audio listeners because of the nature of what it is. You tend to just have your screen off and you just listen to it while you're busy or commuting or otherwise. But I wanted to give them a special shout out. So thanks for listening to our weekly gaming podcast here on the channel. And become a member, please.
We very, very much appreciate it. You know what? The one I want to know is, have we ever had anyone listening in Antarctica? Because to my knowledge, it's the only continent that we haven't cracked.
Yeah, it's those damn penguins can't get access to Spotify.
If you are going to Antarctica anytime soon, do us a favour, just listen to one episode of any of our shows there, so then we can boast that we've been listened to on every single continent.
You might like it.
Yeah, you might. I mean, if you're listening to me babble on for the last 15 minutes, you probably do. Assassin's Creed, Chris.
Babylon.
How bad is it?
How dare you lead with an opening statement like that, sir? Yes, Assassin's Creed Shadows is out. I do want to point out we got sent this code early by Ubisoft as part of the Ubisoft Creators Program, so thank you to Ubisoft for that. I'd probably say I've played about 10 hours so far, digging into it, between the live stream that went up 2 days early before it's when the embargo lifted, when we were out to put content out, but it was a work day for me as well, so I had to kind of do it all after the fact, edit it, render it, so it didn't go up until about 11 o'clock at night, but I wanted to get it up before launch so people could kind of just see what the opening hour or so was like. And as I've dived into it a little bit, Eagle dived into it a little bit more. Everyone who listens to the show knows I'm a huge Assassin's Creed fan anyway. I've got the Platinum Trophy, and I think pretty much every mainline entry bar Black Flag, because that game was so huge at the time, and the warship fights, and I won't get into that. I'm waiting for a remaster. I'll give it another crack when the Black Flag remaster comes out. But in terms of Shadows, I've thoroughly loved almost like the RPG reboot we had back with Origins. Loved Origins. It's actually my favourite of them all so far, of the little reboot series, just because I think Egyptian mythology lends itself so well to the kind of the beginnings of the Creed and the Templars, and how that whole fight throughout history and religion and everything kind of took off. And just the landscapes of just the desert setting of Egypt and the temples and stuff, and going into the tombs, and the DLC especially, which leaned heavily into the mythology, where like you were walking through the field of reeds and there was giant scorpions, and you were stealth assassinating Anubis warriors, and the pyramids were all like original, so like, you know, when they're capped off with the gold and the glistening and white marble, and just walking around that environment in an Assassin's Creed game, it was kind of so different and unique. It really, really did it for me. Yeah. And then Odyssey was great. We played through Odyssey on the channel, if you recall, back in the Stadia days. We went through the whole thing.
I always felt Odyssey was when it got quite bloated with stuff. The main story is great, but there's a lot of crap in that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it got very bloated. And then Valhalla took it to the next level again. Yeah. But enjoyed them all thoroughly. Probably you're talking 300 plus hours worth of gameplay of my life to play through those. And I enjoyed mostly every moment. It's one of those where a lot of podcasts I've listened to this week talking about Assassin's Creed, and you tend to land on one side of the coin. You're either in the camp where you're quite fatigued on the Assassin's Creed formula now, and I don't even think it's Assassin's Creed, I think it is just open world fatigue, that we've had so many huge games the last decade. Assassin's Creed has just become one of those bloated experiences that just people don't have the time for.
That's where I think, especially with Valhalla, a lot of the things that made Assassin's Creed special in the early days, you know, a lot of the stealthy stuff was basically removed. It was basically a Viking simulator, and then it just became a semi-mediocre open-world action RPG, which I enjoyed playing Valhalla. Mm-hmm. But I think I do find it quite unmemorable.
Yeah, it's that almost became too big for its own good, where the story threads became so stretched and the side missions became totally irrelevant to what your character was doing, because when you're 20, 30, 40, 50 missions into helping a lady gather up lost children in a forest or something. You start thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I part of this story? But then they are also damned for doing right and for doing wrong, because on the flip side, they supported the game phenomenally. Valhalla had like what, a 4-year support cycle for a single player game.
I personally think they over supported it. As weird as that sounds, it felt like they were constantly bringing out more and more and more. I understand why, because it did sell phenomenally well, but it did almost feel like, can you guys just move on? Like,
yeah, and I totally see where that's coming from, and they kind of support it with like free content drops, skins, and bonus packs. And you know what, Ubisoft don't really get the credit they deserve for after game support. We know they've done it fantastically for things like Rainbow Six Siege, still like 10 years now, and The Division, which they wrapped up on The Division, and then it was so popular they went back and although it took them time and they've had to delay stuff, credit where credit's due, they go back and support these for all intents and purposes, games that don't really need that roadmap. And I think you're right, it's like it's too long of a support, but at the same time, if people are playing it and buying it, and
with Valhalla, with it being a single player game that it is over the 100 hours mark. I always got the impression with the amount of DLC they were launching for it is they were terrified that you'd stop playing a Ubisoft game, rather than looking to produce a good quality single player narrative experience. They were doing everything in their power to keep you in playing that game, but not in a way that's engaging. Not like he's good content. It's more of a case of he's just stuff
to do.
Yeah, and again, I enjoyed Valhalla, but I did feel like the games were getting very, very bloated and moving away from being an Assassin's Creed game. Yeah,
I think that's about on right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They described this one as somewhere around Odyssey's level, so you're probably talking about 60 to 70 hours to finish the core elements of Assassin's Creed Shadows. And then, of course, you can just go and do whatever, and they're going to do support content. There will be DLC. They've already announced expansions and such if you've acquired the deluxe edition. So there's a good meaty game there to get into. But I guess I want to cover off some of my first impressions of it. The reviews, we should shout out as well, the reviews across the board. It's sitting at an 81 on Metacritic, so it is a good game for all intents and purposes. All the reviews are coming in critically, giving it quite well. And again, back to that discussion of, if you like Assassin's Creed, it's more Assassin's Creed. If you felt fatigued, maybe didn't click with Origins of Valhalla, it's probably not going to be for you, because it's the same formula extensively.
It is an Assassin's Creed game. My interest on is, has the game evolved into does Shadows take the next step for the franchise, or is it just the next iteration of what we've already played?
I think it's the next iteration. It takes all of the great things that made the last three fantastic successes, in terms of like the location is stunningly beautiful. Like, it's almost like this game is 5, 6, 7, 10 years even too late for what Assassin's Creed fans have been wanting. Remember, we've wanted a Assassin's Creed set in feudal Japan since like the Ezio era, because it was just ripe for the picking. And then they delayed, they moved around, they picked different locations, and then we ended up obviously getting Ghost of Tsushima, which kind of came in and stole its lunch a little bit a couple of years back. And then ironically, we've now got Ghost of Yotai, which is coming out later this year, which come Game of the Year discussions at the end of the year. Not that I think Shadows is probably going to be near it for most outlets or people, but in terms of the comparisons, when both games come out in 2025, it's going to be a proper samurai standoff showdown. Samurai showdown, in fact, some would say, at the end of the year. But in terms of just the game in its graces, it takes a lot of the same formula, it elevates it in some areas. It should have probably done more with certain parts, which I think have become like a trope of Assassin's Creed. But ultimately, like a lot of Ubisoft games, Far Cry, the like, it's open world, beautifully realised, stunning vistas, gorgeous animations, with that typical sprinkle of Ubisoft throughout, which means some of the side characters, some of the animations aren't going to be great. Once you scale up to such a large map, there is obviously quality control that gets limited because of the scale of things. Whereas we always praise like games from like Naughty Dog and such for like that single player narrative, but that's such a controlled linear environment. You can meticulously craft every detail of like furnishings or nature or the characters.
You're going to take you are taking a step down, but how far of a step down are you taking?
Absolutely. Where do you draw the line?
The step down is the content should be engaging. I can easily take a step down visually, but the content should be engaging, and that's where I think Valhalla fell down. The side content was boring.
Yeah.
And the narrative
almost
was
AI generated, it felt like.
Yes, that's the problem sometimes.
Yeah. Make me 20 side quests for this game that involve, what were they called? Eivor. Yeah. Eivor. And go. And then the game just goes, there's 20 checkpoint locations, here's some generic characters with some AI. I mean, that's the world we'll get to at some point. I know Ubisoft's probably researching it. But to bring it back around to this one, I think if you're looking for a beautiful Japanese setting, feudal Japan, between this and Ghost of Tsushima, you're spoiled for choice. The vistas look stunning, the landscapes are beautiful, the architecture and such of the time. If anyone watched the Shogun series on Disney Plus recently, highly recommend that. It's at that era where the Portuguese and the Catholic Church are trying to influence Japan. Japan's in a state of civil war where there's loads of warring factions vying for like land and very Game of Thrones essentially. It's that kind of back and forth of families killing families and going to war, and the overseer of the whole of Japan, just there's a fight for power essentially, and you're in the middle of it in a small town. I will say the scope of it, because of the way they've done the landscape, it's obviously there's a lot of nature in Japan, and we saw that in Ghost of Tsushima, that navigating it, they've gone with a more naturalistic approach where some of the eagle jump points, the synchronization spots, I've been trying to get to them, and you can't just scale up things because there's essentially bamboo forests of thickets of foliage that are in the way. You can, but not while you're trying to climb up a hill at the same time. You're using a sharp blade on an incline and trying to steady yourself. Would not recommend it in real life. Doesn't work in the game. Same with when you're sliding down hills. It's so thick that the foliage gets in the camera's face essentially, where you can't see your character. You can hear them rolling around and getting stuck on trees, but for a good 5-10 seconds as you're rolling, sliding down the hill, so you're just looking at like leaves hitting the camera,
so you can see your character.
No, which is, it might be an oversight, it might be fixed in the day one patch. That's obviously something that could happen. But that's just a little scrutiny of the whole thing. The game looks beautiful. The opening cutscenes and stuff are stunningly realised. The facial animations are the best Ubisoft have put out. I am going to make the comparison many, many times. They're nowhere near as good as Ghost of Tsushima for me still, but that's a PlayStation Studios exclusive perk. Like it's the same with Naughty Dog games. Like The Last of Us came out 10 years ago and it still looks better than half things that we see today from most third party. So I don't want to lament too much on that, but again, similar to when you get to like the side missions and you bump into someone just on the road and they go, "Hey, kind sir, help me out with my apple cart that's broken." And then you see the character and they kind of stand there like a robot that don't really know what to do. They deliver their generic line and then you go, it gives you your dialogue options. You go, okay, and then they just stand still. Like they're not really doing anything other than just by the side of the road. And I think that's back to the open world nature of this game, is they can't really make animations for every single side person doing little intricate jobs in the wild. But that kind of breaks the immersion to a degree as well.
Yeah, I personally don't think that's ever been the problem with Assassin's Creed. That's just stuff that you can go, yeah.
It's just game stuff, right?
It's game being game. It's a massive game. I actually think these reviews are being a bit harsh with some of the scores.
I agree.
So I've got 3 reviews I'm going to read, and based on these one paragraph sentences, I think they've underrated the game. So from Twinfinite, Assassin's Creed Shadows' few frustrations are quickly outweighed by a magnificent immersive Japan, an excellent AC style mix of real world and fictional characters like Yasuke and Naoe, and the fantastic cinematic level story to let them all shine, especially if you experience the Japanese dub via immersive mode. 80. That's a 90 reading, that. I'm reading that should be a 90. VGC. Assassin's Creed Shadows finally takes the main series to Japan and does so in some style. With excellent gameplay, a compelling narrative, and massive, beautiful world to explore, it is so much better than many expected it to be. Even if it's not the game that saves Ubisoft, why the fuck does that matter? You review the game, not the company. We've talked all sorts about how this is an important game for Ubisoft, but you're reviewing the game, keep it to the game. It is exactly what it needed to, bringing back confidence to one of modern gaming's biggest and most troubled franchises. 80, IGN. By sharpening the edges of existing systems, Assassin's Creed Shadows creates one of the best versions of the open world style it's been holding for the last decade. 80. I'm skeptical of Assassin's Creed, as it's very clear from this episode alone. Yeah. I think they're harsh scoring wise. I think the 81 rating is harsh. Yeah. I think from what I've seen, this is at least an 85.
Yeah, it's one. I know that they're just arbitrary scores, but it's that weird thing where the games industry is so siloed in like California, San Francisco, that when they get a narrative, especially as journalists,
but they're calling it a great narrative. They're saying the world's beautiful.
The industry's narrative. Not the game. The industry's narrative of, like, as you said, Ubisoft are struggling. They need this to land well to save the company and all this. And as you said, like, what's that got to do with the game? Absolutely nothing. But then there's that weird inherent bias that no human being can ever escape from. You've got outside interference. Like, unless you live in a bubble and they just pull you out every few years to play an Assassin's Creed game and then put you back into the bubble, you can't really escape it. But I think you're right. There's some of the descriptions they go into and say, like, it's the best one yet. It's like, well, Odyssey and Valhalla got, like, higher scores. So... But then that's when it comes back down to it's just one individual's opinion who works at a company and probably didn't review the last one. So you can't really mix apples to oranges. But I think I do agree what you're saying. It's everything the previous game's done, slightly elevated.
I think some of it is more than slightly elevated. The just straight up combat of the game, I think it is pretty much the same. You're using a katana rather than you're using an axe in this game. But beyond that, it's largely similar. But there's other stuff they've done. Yeah,
they've evolved a little bit. So to give a bit more context for how that looks, then this game has a dual protagonists. You've got Naoe and Yasuke. I can't remember how you say it still.
Diogo.
Yes, you've got. The way it kind of kicks off and starts is it's quite interesting because a lot of people will be quite surprised, as I was. Is it opens up with Yasuke's storyline, and then it kind of leaves him for 10 hours, and you get handed over to Naoe's story, which is, again, equally as intriguing, but I couldn't help feel for the first 20, 30 minutes, like, I kind of wanted to see the rest of the guys through a little bit, because that's also interesting.
From what I've seen, I think it's interesting what he's setting up. I think his style of combat is what I want Assassin's Creed ideally to move away from. I think Assassin's Creed should have a bit more focus on stealth. The action, the straight up walking into an enemy army and cut everyone down should be a last resort. So I definitely would prefer Naoe over Yasuke.
Yeah, and that's where I presume as the game gets on and we get back to him, we're going to get the choice. But at the moment, I'm playing as Naoe. I've been free to explore, to go do missions, side missions, typical Assassin's Creed tropes. And I'm sure one of the missions will eventually lead me to cross paths with Yasuke's story, and that's when it's going to open up, and I'm going to be able to just jump presumably between them at free availability or per act, maybe. I'm not too sure. But yeah, he's basically all about like brute strength. So even though he is a samurai, he starts off as a bodyguard for some Catholic priests, and he quickly becomes kind of inundated with the local shinobi, who's Nobunaga, I believe he's called, who's kind of the big
Nobunaga
linchpin. Yeah. And they kind of take him under his wing, and you go and take out his deeds in and across Japan, and you take out some supposed enemies. But at this point in the story, you don't know who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. So I'm guessing one of them might end up being a Templar at some point, maybe, because it is Assassin's Creed. The story has to link in with the Creed versus the Templar Knights at some point. But in terms of the dual protagonist, he's brute strength. So he's like very much like combat heavy. You run through, smash through doors, you hack people in daft. There is severed limbs and blood in this game. You can turn them off in the settings, but it doesn't shy away from the violence of like blood spattered Japan or like Japanese movies and stuff, like brutal. But then when it gets to Naoe's story, and she's very much just like a young girl. Her dad is one of the local samurai, and she learns from him. And you typical Assassin's Creed formula, it opens up to that, like there's 10, 15 unknown people, all with masks, who are part of some kind of cult, like similar in Odyssey, where you essentially want to go hunt them all down for reasons. And hers is very much leaning into the traditional stealth, but this is where I think the game actually elevates the stealth a little bit. We've always said that's what AC is to a lot of people, and they've kind of got away from that in the RPG versions. Mirage kind of went back to old school, but with Shadows, they've actually gone a little bit more into it. So for me, what I'm enjoying so far, I'm one of those people who I find a venue, a location, like a castle, and I'll quite happily like tag all the targets. So you could do some recon, some scouting ahead. You tag them all. You stealthily work your way around, and you take them out, ideally one by one if you want to. This game introduces prone. So for the first time in the whole franchise, you can actually lie flat. A game about stealth, you've never been able to lie flat and creep or crawl under places in the past.
Now you can. How they haven't evolved the stealth mechanics much over the years.
Absolutely. So crawling through like the much shorter grass in little crevices in and out of buildings, taking cover under like different objects because you can go flat is surprisingly impactful. One of the great things I do like what they do though is you can actually utilize the light and shadows in this one a lot. Like the game's aptly named Shadows. If you're stealthing around at nighttime especially, the enemies don't see you as much. You've got a little visibility radar across the bottom of your screen, like a little white line with an eyeball. And as you come into, it's basically like their cone of vision essentially, but it's impacted by light. So if you're out in the daytime, if you hide in the shadows, they're less likely to spot you. So it creates an interesting, almost like Splinter Cell stealth dynamic of where you hide is more important than ever. And I think in a stealth game, that's great to have. And I wouldn't be surprised if this mechanic is plucked up and put into the new Splinter Cell game they're working on. Because it's kind of like a one-for-one fit. And then the third element I really liked is the seasons. So the game, as you progress through it goes through different seasons. And those seasons come with things that impact the environment. So, for example, in the winter season, there's icicles off the top of all like corners and ceilings where it's rained. They can be knocked down to make noises. As like a distraction technique.
Oh, that's cool.
So I've not got into other seasons yet, but I'm expecting like I don't think it'll impact the stealth that much, but it was just a mechanic of like, oh, that's a clever use of like the natural environment that you wouldn't have in the summer or the spring. So it gives me just some variation in my approach. And I've really enjoyed that. But I think I'm going to lean more into Nawe's character just because I am the more stealth person. I don't really want to just run in and shout and scream and chop heads off, as fun as that is. And then I guess in terms of the wider formula, what they've introduced is not stealing directly from Ghost of Tsushima, but it felt very, very similar. You find a nice tranquil spot, you sit down, you get almost what looks like an ocarina out, if I'm honest. You play some little Japanese flute music, lovely, tranquil, relaxing. And then you play a little button game of like hit up, circle, X, up, boom. Yeah, exactly like that. And then the logos fade out and you've got to do it without seeing the prompts.
It's a rhythm game.
Yeah, it's a rhythm game and you're getting more tranquil as it goes on, boom, boom, and you get the beats. However, when you finish it, that's not the end of it. What they use these meditation points for is they go back and let you play a small linear story of Nawe and Yasuke's past that leads up to the present day. So it was actually really interesting of like, oh, actually, I just spotted this random thing out there in the world, went and did the little puzzle game, and then I got like a 20-minute story beat of her and her dad and him training her to be like to know how to block and defend, and it's almost like a tutorial and a story at the same time.
Yeah.
And I could have just missed it and went totally past it.
They're doing kind of on points the Breath of the Wild thing where you as you go around the world you're discovering things that unlock part of the story for you, the like memories. So you're kind of unlocking her past to see how she became what she is, how you when you're playing it. Yeah.
And it feels like it's obviously a side story because I don't have to do it, but it's adding context to the main story, and that's, I think, where video games really come into their own with storytelling.
That's why I think side quests are doing well. When the side stuff folds back into the main game and gives you more context for the narrative that you're playing, that deepens and enriches the world, rather than just, he's a monastery, take that gold.
Yeah, exactly. Loot. Yeah, completely. So that's the Kujikiri, I think it's called. That's like the meditation process. There are animals, you can pet cats, but also there's an interesting mechanic where as you explore the world, there's obviously loads of beautiful animals in Japan, and we found that with like the foxes and stuff in Ghost of Tsushima. Yeah. When you spot them, you have to use your prone and stealth and season abilities to get up to them, and you basically observe them for a couple of seconds, and then what you do is she draws a little kind of like what's the Japanese ink called, like the special type, where they use the quill and they do you know what it is, that typical Japanese art style of like fancy brush strokes make like just some beautiful images. You'll have seen them before, but basically when you draw them, they go up in your home base.
That's cool.
And the house is like pieces of art, so there's like a little mini game there. And then the final gameplay formula is the home base. So if you remember in Valhalla, you had Ravensthorpe or Ravens something, like your home base, but you couldn't really do anything. You had to walk around and find them totem markers, and then you paid for like a barracks or a shop or a fish market or whatever it was. With this one, it's actually a lot closer to The Sims, where essentially you have your credits or your money and your resources, and you can build it out. So it zooms out, it pans right up as a bird's eye view almost. It gives you the whole land of your area, and you can put in like the barracks essentially again, the blacksmiths and stuff. And over time, that's what leads into your skill tree being improved by how much you improve your home base. And as you meet people out in the wild, they come and live in your home. And again, not too far from Valhalla, but the way they go about it, you can pick your themes, so you can get to pick like the type of material. Is it marble? Is it wood? Is it this and that? You can draw the paths like Roller Coaster Tycoon between the buildings. So you are essentially designing your own home base. And it's like an homage to Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, if you remember, when you would build up your group of the scouts and people, and you'd have that like tiny little home base area. You'd go around and help Uncle Mario do up his house and his estate
it's
essentially for free.
Mario.
Hey, and then we're at this point where almost it's not a mini game, I'd say, but I think Valhalla, just walking around and paying money to improve it, was like, right, I don't really have any attachment to that, but me being able to place stuff where I want it and pick the color scheme and the flags that go up and the wall art is the animals I found out in the wild, and my sword collection goes up on the wall. It's quite personal, and I think it goes a long way to making the home base actually feel like a home base.
I mean, you're right, and actually it was Assassin's Creed 2 that you could first rebuild the villa. Yeah. So it's been in with Assassin's Creed all the way since 2, having your home base and building it and developing it. Mm-hmm. But it feels like, again, it doesn't feel like Valhalla's version of it is that dissimilar from Assassin's Creed 2's, where the difference is you walk around your village, you go to a post, then you spend your stuff. Assassin's Creed 2, just go to a person and go, I want this.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, again, they've evolved part of the Assassin's Creed formula.
Yeah. And
this is what I've been wanting, actually. I've never been, I want them to completely chuck away everything they've done with Assassin's Creed. Mm-hmm. But it's time for the next, I've always felt it's time for the next step.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen, I think they're taking it.
It's again, everyone I've spoke to playing it and the podcast I've listened to this week, from what I've seen, it does everything right. And back to kind of to bring it full circle, is the story so far is really interesting. The dual protagonists, both of them have a good foundation that has me intrigued. I've wanted to learn more. Like, since I've been away with work and not being able to play it, it's one of them games I can't wait to get back and just see what the next chapter is in their story. The game, the world, the civil war in Japan, if you've watched Shogun, I might have said Shinobi earlier on, the Shogun TV show, it is that like Game of Thrones of like, every town, city I'm going to go to, there's going to be new dynamics of just people who don't get along, some people who are vying for power, and Naoe and Yasuke are kind of sucked into that world, and they can't escape it, whether you want to be innocent or pacifist or aggressive, or like even Yasuke, he's a slave being dragged over to Japan away from his home country, and somehow he finds himself in the kind of stewardship of the local shogun, and he doesn't really want to be there, but he's killing people. And is he doing it for the right reasons? Is he doing it for his freedom? There's so many like different levels to the story, and they're just enjoyable so far. The mechanics are fun, the skill trees are interesting there, but I think to back all that up, the world, Japan's just a fucking beautiful country, isn't it?
It is,
and it's just so like exploring. Like, I'd be quite happy just walking around, and Ubisoft have made, similar to Ghost of Tsushima, just a beautifully realised Japan to go and explore at your own free will. And I think that's something as gamers, that's why we love playing games. It's that escapism. Go and explore it. And if you happen to like checkbox style exercises with a nice bit of story and fun combat, you're not going to get a better game this year, probably until Ghost of Yotai comes out. That does all that for you. So yeah, so, all in all, I'd say so far it's up there where I can totally see the 8s and pushing the 9s for me.
So interestingly, Oda Nobunaga, who you do meet very early on in the game, is largely credited being one of the first people to unify Japan. So that's Spoilers. Yes. spoilers for a guy who died in the 1500s.
Mm-hmm. But the methods of unification, if everyone has to bow down to him and accept his rule, that's where like other families and clans are like.
But this is
Game of Thrones.
This is where I kind of wanted Assassin's Creed to do a take on that era of feudal Japan, the unification, and go, where are the Templars and the Assassins meddling in all this? Because that's effectively what Assassin's Creed has always done. Hey, here's a great historical event. The Templars are going to be on one side of it, the Assassins are going to be on the other, and they're both meddling.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the Assassins are meddling for the best, and the Templars are meddling for less noble purposes. But so it'll be interesting to see where each faction falls.
Yeah, and the one that's got me so far, that's got me so intrigued still, is there's a gimmick, like a box that basically like Naoe, not really spoilers because it's a small thing, but yeah, Naoe has to get to a box that they've been looking after, and it gets stolen by the other party, and they carry it around saying, "Oh, this is for me," and people die because of it, and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know what's in the box still. And I know it's a piece of Eden. But what part? And in like history, it was they're always like relevant to like things throughout history, and they're
We're
like
talking about
Excalibur
stuff in the first
sword
hour at the moment. So it's not really
yeah,
spoilers.
absolutely.
But they refer to it as the jewel, don't they?
It's just like it's like in the box, and you never see what's in the box. Even like the bad guy who gets it opens it up and looks in and is like, ha, it's mine. And then as the player, I'm like, what the fuck is it? I just want to know what this piece of Eden is. Like, is it a part of like Japanese culture? Is it something the Portuguese have brought over? Like, is it religious? Is it a cross? Is it a dagger that belonged to like a great mythological warrior? Like, but they just go like, oh, it's the box, and you just see the box, and I'm like, damn, I need to play more of this game to find out what the damn thing is. Like, what's the gimmick?
I wonder if the Pulp Fiction it, where you never see what's inside the suitcase.
Oh, nah, because it'll be the boss fight at the end. They'll have to be wearing it, right, or wielding it.
It's this now into speculation territory. I think maybe the Portuguese missionaries that like Yasuke comes over with, maybe they're there looking for that piece of Eden.
Yeah, that sounds like a Templar plan.
Because they are Christian missionaries, so you're linking it into potentially, like, you know, the Vatican stuff from Assassin's Creed 2. Absolutely. I don't know the timeline specifically, but when was Rodrigo Borgia killed?
It's probably hundreds of years before, right? That's like, if we're in the 1500s, we're already many years on from Jesus' demise. Yeah.
So Rodrigo Borgia died in 1503. Oda Nobunaga died in 1582. He was born about 30 years after Rodrigo Borgia. So we're in the same ballpark.
That's interesting, that, yeah. I mean, we don't know what, after Assassin's Creed Hex and whatever, and Red and Jade or whatever. Jade's the mobile game, isn't it?
We're talking about Red.
Yeah, Red became Shadow. And then they had all colours, remember?
Yeah.
We could see a world where the next RPG big one, like 2-3 years from this, could be back to Renaissance Italy time.
So is timeline-wise this the closest game to the original, to the Ezio trilogy?
So, yes, it probably is timeline-wise, because
Origins Cassandra.
well before, Cassandra's ancient Greece still. The biggest point I've not really even touched on yet is this game opens with the Animus Hub. I didn't even mention that yet, but yeah, the opening of the game takes you into that hub world that we've discussed on the show before. Of essentially, it shows you Naoe and Yasuke, and you can scroll up and down through the timeline, and it boots up the game. So if you go to Valhalla in 872 CE, it takes you to PlayStation Plus to boot up the game, and I'm guessing on Xbox it does like the equivalent, and so you can. It still feels weird. Yeah,
I think it's pointless.
I
don't think it's doing anything useful there with how it's being integrated so far.
But that whole, the layout we discussed where it's got like the vault, which is all your codex entries you found. It's got but
it's just a menu, and you're not walking around an area.
You're not as much as I think we first thought. Yeah, but it does seem like they're unifying it all. But all of the Ezio stuff, Black Flag, it's not there. So I think Ubisoft again, over time, this is where they're going to tweak and amend and edit and make it. But
which is possibly just to to them. Like the Ezio collection feel, even the remasters feel aged now.
Yeah.
Altair's game isn't there. Black Flag isn't there. Assassin's Creed 3 isn't there, despite the remaster being fairly recent.
Yeah, that's true. So they must have a plan for like a phase 2, like get all the modern ones on, and then we'll start tweaking around. But if you follow the narrative, Ubisoft might be dead and buried by then, so we'll have to see. But overall, great. Can't wait to spend not hundreds, maybe many more hours in this world. And I'll keep you updated every week on the show.
Indeed. Let's move on now to PlayStation are creating a new studio, Dark Outlaw Games. Have we talked about this before? I feel like we might have done.
No. It's new news this week. I think we've discussed rumours of them plotting and planning and doing other things, but it's official now. So it's what we've got. It's called Dark Outlaw Games. It's being headed by Jason Blundell, who was former Call of Duty developer over at Treyarch. So he's got plenty of experience making massive AAA games, especially in the first-person studio. I think we might touch on this because he did run Deviation games, which PlayStation made a contract for back in like 2021, I think, 22. They even were on at the Game Awards, I believe. They came on stage, showed the logo, and me give them shit because they never actually showed anything. They just went, "Oh, thanks for showing up. We'll hopefully get a sneak peek next year." And then they went bust and folded, and everyone left. So I'm guessing whatever it is, Jason had a decent relationship enough with Sony to convince them to empower him to do something new. So yeah, Sony has a new first-person studio called Dark Outlaw or Outlaw Games.
Yeah. So what are you expecting from this?
It's got to be a shooter, right? Yeah, it's got to be a shooter purely based on his pedigree, and the fact PlayStation are missing one in their lineup. They don't have shooter outside of Destiny. And it's not really theirs.
As the studio core head, how much involved is he actually in narrative, in like design of games, or it depends on his role really? Because some studios where the head of the studio could be very much involved in everything the studio is doing. Others could be more of like a kind of managerial role, checking the boxes, making sure the finances are paid, all that kind of stuff. So it really depends on what he's doing, but it's also possible he's moved away from Treyarch because he wants to do something different.
Yeah, we saw it with Guerrilla. They pivoted and made Horizon from doing ultimately first-person shooters for all of their history. So anything can happen. I just think it's always a weird one, purely because PlayStation just shut down the Concord studio. Yeah. So it's odd that on one hand they would smite their own studio down and lay loads of people off and call it quits, and then yet fund the brand new founding of a new studio, which inherently is going to have more costs involved because your overheads for like recruitment, staffing up, purchasing like headquarters, and all the copyright stuff like for the brand and the logo, like all that like little intricate stuff that already just existed over at Firewalk, right, or Firesprite, whichever one it was. But then it's like, is it worth just like cutting cords with the brand because it's got that stinky bad game mess on it?
I don't think it's a marketing thing. What I think it's a business thing. So because each studio, it's not even tax avoidance. It's like I think because each studio will be effectively run as its own business. So because Firewalk was very much not profitable, in order to keep that going, so Sony would have had to throw money into it, which doesn't look great on the books because it looks like you just keep trying to prop up a failing business.
Yeah, true.
Where you could take the same money and create a brand new studio, and that now you're suddenly investing in creating work.
Yeah, that's true.
We've created
so many new jobs. Yeah,
it's all.
There's like a meta game to it, isn't there?
Yeah, it's all the business optics and how things look on paper to things like shareholders and stuff. So yes, theoretically, they could have chucked the same money that they put into the studio so far into Firewalk and got them to crack on with something, what comes after Concord.
Yeah.
But it also might be like just parts of what they like about that Firewalk they wanted rid of anyway. So I think it is being very cutthroat with this stuff to make sure everything still looks very good on paper to the investors.
Yeah. But as you said, they didn't really give anything away. So will it be a traditional PlayStation third-person action-adventure, story-driven? Or will it be a shooter? Will it be... I'm guessing it's a new IP. You would imagine they're not going to give them like an old one. I know we've said a few times about like Bend and Blue Point maybe being given a kill zone or a resistance, but I'd imagine with a brand new studio, it's going to be a new IP.
Yeah, well, I'd assume so, but let's hope they'll have the chance to actually make a game.
Yeah, we could be sat here in 3 years' time going, they canned it, they closed the studio like they did with Deviation, and we're right back at square one. Because it's going to take 3 to 4 years max before we even see anything from these guys now.
And that's the thing, I think, with new studios. You've got maybe 3 to 4, maybe even 5 or 6 years, depending on the scope of the game, before your first game comes out. That's a long time for a studio not to be profitable.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And if Sony have a few, let's say, not expecting it to happen, let's say Ghost of Yotei is absolutely god-awful, no one likes it, and suddenly Sony in a bad situation.
Yeah.
They want to recoup costs out of there, save some money. Well, Dark Outlaw Games is 3 years out from their game release. We haven't invested that much at this point. Do we just close that down and just jettison them?
It's a sad state of affairs, really, isn't it?
I don't like being this cynical, but there's everything we've covered over the last 5 years with closures and stuff. It's a cutthroat industry from the business point of view. If the businesses aren't succeeding,
really is.
That's it. Shall we move on, Chris, to Atomfall? Which lands next week on Game Pass, but we have some reviews in. How is it
another
doing?
game. Well, I think this is one that when we both saw Atomfall at the Xbox Showcase and / Game Awards, we thought, this looks good. It looks like Fallout in the UK. It's in like the British countryside. And it looked good, but I think for both me and you, it was like we need to see a little bit more of this. And then we got like a gameplay trailer, I want to say, a couple of weeks back, and then now the reviews are out, and they're letting the reviews and embargoes go over a week early. That's usually a good sign, and it's coming out favourably, and it's currently set on Metacritic at 76, so it's good. Not quite as good as Assassin's Creed Shadows, just saying. But in terms of the reviews it's getting, it's very favourable. I'll give you some context. I'll read some out. Games Radar gave it a 9 out of 10. With a tightly designed world and a level of player freedom rarely seen, Atomfall already represents some of the best offline adventuring 2025 has to offer. Best of all, it's keen to allow as many people as possible to join the party. Don't really know what that means. We got Dual Shockers, gave it an 8.5. They said, immersive sims are incredibly difficult to create, and Atomfall deserves heaps of praise for going against the grain and presenting an open world format that books almost every established trend, but even more so for doing this with an aplomb and crafting an immersive, engaging, and breathtaking world. Gunplay is a stone's throw away from Sniper Elite because it's Rebellion who are making this, so that's their franchise. And Zombie Army as well. But thanks to the survival approach, everything feels much more frantic and frenetic. The only glaring issues at the core narrative flatters to deceive, and the enemy's AI retains some run-on issues from the Sniper Elite series. But all in all, Atomfall is a triumphant, immersive sim that takes big swings and hits plenty of home runs. So quite a good one there. And I think we'll pull one more decent one out from Push Square, like another reputable site. 8 out of 10. Atomfall commits to embodying everything it means to be British, and it comes out the other side all the better for it. The mystery at the heart of this alternate 1960s setting is gripping, forever teasing clues and solutions to a way out of its rural quarantine zone. Its combat systems and mechanics let the experience down a little bit, but Rebellion's latest peaks when it makes you the countryside's Inspector Gadget with a bunch of leads to pursue and village folk to suspect. So yeah, it's like Fallout, almost like Atomic Heart, like nuclear shit's happened. You come out and the British countryside is oppressed by like steampunk-style robots, and it's extensively a survival game. So a lot of the stuff that people are praising Kingdom Come Deliverance for recently, and other survival games we've had in recent years, are kind of embodied in this everybody's gone to the Rapture style version of Fallout, and I dig it. I dig it a lot. I just wish it wasn't coming out next week.
Yeah. I've
got 100 hours of Shadows to play. And it is coming to Game Pass, so it's it's there for me to try if I want to as well, which is like the other we're so spoiled.
But there's always stuff coming to Game Pass. That's why I said earlier, like there's a lot too much stuff right on top of each other at the moment, and realistically, you're picking one or two of them.
Yeah, you have to.
So like,
but over to you. Obviously, you're the more first-person explorative type guy, and you're a huge Fallout fan, and it's clearly inspired by that. Where are you sitting on this game?
I don't think it's piqued my interest. Every time it comes into the news and we see a trailer, I go, "Oh, that looks interesting," and then I forget about it. It's not capturing my attention the way other games are. It's like I don't mind Fallout, but I wouldn't describe myself as a huge fan. I think I enjoyed the show more than I've enjoyed most of the games that I've played. I think probably an 8 out of 10 is probably where it sits, if I had to guess. I'm not in any mad rush to play it, basically. It's probably one of the ones of that list of things like Doom Year Zero. What was it called? Oh, God, the Doom game. I'm blanking on it.
The Doom game?
Yeah, the new Doom game that's coming up
Dark Ages.
Dark Ages. Doom Dark Ages, South of Midnight, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Atomfall is probably lowest on the list.
Yeah. Well, again, this is where if it traditionally came out in March, would have been no problem. But now you've got big AAA games that are now eating up its space and its time.
Yeah. But if you are someone who's absolutely craving Fallout, go play Atomfall. It feels like that's probably the right choice there.
Yeah. What I would like is a lot of our members of the Discord server and our channel to just kind of like, if you're playing this, like let us know, because I feel really harsh that we've done like 50 minutes of Assassin's Creed and we don't really have we don't have a code for this, to be fair, so we haven't played it yet.
We also, neither of us have the same interest in this game that we do in Assassin's Creed.
But yeah, it looks good. And what I really do like, and I do want to call it out, is just Rebellion breaking away from their traditional franchises. Like, we will inevitably get another Sniper Elite. We will inevitably get another zombie army. And they'll be fun and they'll be great. But I think Atomfall's given them a chance to flex their muscles and tell maybe a different type of story and make a fresh new world. I think after, 4 zombie army games and 5 Sniper Elites for a AA studio, it's probably good to stretch your legs every now and again with something different.
Yeah. It feels like Atomfall might be a first step into the AAA rather than AA. I feel it's at the lowest rung of the AAA or the highest rung of the AA in terms of the quality you're getting there.
Yeah, you're getting almost like AA Bethesda, and I think this sandwich with Avowed, just remember Avowed only came out like 6 weeks ago as well, which is another massive RPG. I think between Avowed and Atomfall, you've essentially got AA Fallout and AA Skyrim. Both sat there, free on Game Pass, brand new, ready to go play and explore. Brand new open world. I would
say Avowed is more than AA. I'd say that's definitely a AAA game.
I think it's just in terms of like, like the Sky. All right, so doing a disservice by calling AA, but you know what I mean, like a second tier of games that you love. You've got 2 of them to go play in the last month.
I know where you're coming from. It's like, if you're waiting for an Elder Scrolls game, you can't wait to get your hands on Elder Scrolls 6. Avowed may whet your appetite, keep you satiated for a little bit longer while that cooks. Absolutely. Likewise, Atomfall to Fallout, kind of filling the same slot. Yeah, if you can't wait for Fallout 5, then Atomfall, you've got Atomfall in the same genre to play. Yeah, and you'll have a good time with it.
Yeah, and we all know there's nothing much cooler than like radioactive shit that's made people and animals and stuff different.
Yeah.
So almost like, it's got like a Bioshocky vibe to it as well. So, but yeah, shout out to Atomfall, 76 on Metacritic. Obviously, the reviews are only just coming in today at the time of recording, so we'll probably see a couple more come out over the weekend. So by the time this show goes live, the score might have deviated a little bit, but getting good reviews, which is solid, just like Avowed did. And yeah, good time to be a gamer.
Yeah. And let's move on. We've got 4 new titles getting added to Switch Online. Talking about Assassin's Creed and Nobunaga, we get Nobunaga's Ambition, Lord of Darkness, Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4, Wall of Fire, and Uncharted, Water New Horizons.
Yeah, we've got 4 games I've never heard of before. And it's very interesting how, we're definitely getting like an Asian taste of things this month in terms of gaming. But how ironic how I've never seen or heard of like Nobunaga really before, I don't think. And then all of a sudden he's like central to the story I'm playing in Assassin's Creed. And then Nintendo just go, oh, we've got these classic NES games also based. These are not spin-offs of Assassin's Creed. This is just purely like old style games from NES era. Yeah, Nobunaga, who knew he had his own series? And Romance of the Three Kingdoms is the Dynasty Warriors story, essentially, through ancient China.
I mean, it's not that surprising with Nobunaga because he is probably one of the most famous people in history.
Wow.
Just more in Eastern history than in Western history.
And that's where we're just naive to all of that. And then, the Uncharted, Water New Horizons, this is like just take PlayStation IP well before it existed. But none of these for me. You still have Nintendo Online, right, Richie?
I do, because it's like 30 quid a year. So
it's
so cheap.
The
only time I want to play something, it's worth it.
Yeah, they just look like turn-based RPGs based on Japanese and Chinese culture, the lot of them. Indeed. But I do like how Nintendo just keep padding out this library. It's nice to see.
Shall we move on to Microsoft have leaked Steam game integration at GDC?
Fools! They love leaking their own stuff, don't they, Microsoft? What have they done?
I'm not sure. What have they done? So Microsoft seemingly, I'm reading from Eurogamer, Microsoft seemingly has an update in mind for the Xbox app, which is still terrible at the moment because they still need to integrate cloud gaming back into it properly. Mm-hmm. And they got rid of one app and then didn't integrate the functions into the other app before they got rid of it, which I still don't understand why you'd do that. But continue to read, which will show every game users have installed on their PC. That includes titles on both Steam and Epic Games. So basically, if you open up the Microsoft launcher on PC, you'll see your Steam and Epic Games list.
So Steam games. What this tells me,
just make it messier.
I think this is so. The banner that leaked, the title card across the top was opening $1 billion with Xbox, and it's back to their kind of one ecosystem model of you can play. Like, everything is an Xbox. This is an Xbox, and integrating it with Steam is that next step in that evolution to say you can do it on Steam Deck, you can do it via a browser, you can do it using the cloud.
I know what they're doing. What they're doing is trying to make it so when you sit down to play a game on your PC, the first place you open is your Xbox app. Yeah. You're not opening Steam, you're not Epic Games, you're not opening anything else. You're just opening Xbox and all your games are there to get you used to being in that ecosystem. So that's when you start buying games from there rather than buying from Steam.
And taking a step back, you can see how everything we discussed last week about the new handheld and the overlay they might set up, you can see how their marketing campaign and their business strategy for like the next fiscal year, you can almost see how the pieces are coming together. Like, as people who observe it every week on a podcast, you can see like all these threads of like, okay, there's the narrative of like Play Anywhere, there's the behind the scenes hardware leaks, there's the rumors of a handheld, a new console in 2 years' time, and it's all kind of like with third party partnerships and deals and playing nice with Steam and Epic and everything. You can kind of see what's all going on here. But it's always funny when they leak it themselves because like you only have yourself to blame. Like all the hardware stuff that leaked during their Activision Blizzard takeover. But nothing really too deep to drill into, I don't think. But interesting on the same.
My skepticism is I think Xbox have been quite bad with managing their apps and their storefronts and their user interfaces. I think they are kind of crap, to be honest, and difficult to navigate. So throwing more things into the mix before you've managed to get a nice, clean, clear setup feels like a messy. You're chucking more mess onto the pile. I know some people do like Xbox's interfaces, but I do find them difficult to navigate around.
I agree. I much prefer the PlayStation one, and I mean the Switch one's so basic. There's nothing to really go wrong with it. But in terms of just accessibility, it's always got room for improvement.
Indeed, and talking about accessibility, Xbox Adaptive Joystick has launched, at the Microsoft Ability Summit. So this is something that Microsoft have always done really well, better than any other video game company probably, in getting accessibility options to players in hardware. There's a lot of companies, Ubisoft surprisingly, very good at the software version of it, but providing, they had the adaptive controller, didn't they? Before, now they've got the adaptive joystick.
Yeah, the adaptive controller was like the kind of plug-in box, didn't it, that had all like the different inputs for multiple different devices. You could just kind of plug and adapt what the existing hardware that was out there. And PlayStation since had out their adapter, like the disc, if you remember, with all like the little paddles that would come off it, and you could tweak and amend that one too. And this one looks like another great step in the same direction to make gaming more accessible for anyone with any kind of disability or input problem.
Yeah, so you don't need the adaptive controller to use the adaptive joystick, so it can be used standalone, or I think it can be used in conjunction with the adaptive controller, which I think is critical. I do like Xbox's mantra of kind of like, gaming's for everyone, we're going to put our games everywhere, and we're going to create hardware so everyone can play them.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing to not like about this. I don't feel I'm that qualified to talk about this stuff too much, but I do like seeing stuff that at least they're making solid attempts to get gaming more accessible to people who wouldn't be able to otherwise play.
Yeah, I agree. Good step in the right direction.
But what apparently wasn't a good step in the right direction is Life is Strange Double Exposure. And the classic Square Enix move, it didn't do well enough. Oh, actually, it's been reported as a large loss for the publisher.
Square Enix love throwing their own stuff under the bus, don't they? Like almost imminently after launch
so they kind of have to talk about the numbers.
Do you think this kills the franchise? For a while, at least?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like going back to Max Caulfield was kind of a Hail Mary approach to kind of like rejuvenate it. Although I think True Colours did well enough, but probably not as... I feel like since the first two games, Life is Strange and Before the Storm, it hasn't quite hit the same heights. So I think going back to Max was definitely an attempt to do that.
Yeah.
And I must admit, I'm interested in playing the game, but I just haven't got round to it.
Yeah.
It might...
Yeah.
Is this a game, do you think, has long legs in terms of it's not going to have a massive spike in like players? It's going to have slowly build over time.
Yeah, but I mean, it's got enough brand awareness behind it. I think it's either possibly the launch window wasn't right for the type of game it was. Like, it's such a hard thing to predict. Is the market hungry for like a story like this now, especially with like an episodic based one? Was the marketing clear around, this is the whole game? I know we've discussed recently Rage and Bloom, right? They've currently got like one episode out. Episode 2 comes out next month into PlayStation Plus. When's 3 and 4? Like there's a lot of confusion around, I think, these type of games from a marketing standpoint. But I'll be interested to see, all things said and done. If you remember, this came out and then Bloom and Rage delayed, which was the
so it wouldn't come out
game.
At the same time.
This is Deck 9, so they wouldn't come out. So it'd be interesting, all things said and done, which actually fared better out of the two. Yeah. Because I think with this step in the wrong direction, seemingly for Deck 9, you do wonder, like, where do they go next? Like, has the Life is Strange franchise ran its course? Do they really need to mix up the characters a bit more and get away from this kind of teenage girl with superpowers kind of image they painted for themselves? But maybe. I don't know. Like, maybe they need to branch out. Like, Don't Nod, on the other hand, they did Ghosts of New Eden at the same time before doing Bloom and Rage, so they totally branched out into a game that I thought was fantastic last year. So at least they tried something new, whereas these guys seemingly just keep ticking away at Life is Strange content. And
it's interesting. Like, Square Enix, they haven't actually called out Life is Strange specifically, but they have saying new titles that underperformed, and things like Dragon Quest III HD 2D and Final Fantasy XIV's expansion Dawn Trail have helped offset the losses. So basically, they're pointing the finger without actually directly pointing the finger, because they haven't actually made mention of how many game copies it sold.
But you can read between the lines.
Yes, it is very clear between the lines. There's not many other games they've had out in that time period that their financial reports are talking about.
Yeah, it's a shame. But I think, again, we'll both play it when we get around to it. No doubt we'll probably get it on some kind of subscription service and we'll play it that way. But it's one that it's in my pipeline, whether it's now or in several years' time.
I think it was overpriced as well. I think that was one of the problems with it. It wasn't about a £60 game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
I feel for that style of game, that feels a lot.
I'd say 40.
Yeah, I'd say it should be in the £40 bracket. Yeah. I kind of agree with that. And
£10 an episode almost. Like, I know it's such a way of like measuring value because it doesn't work like that with a game, but yeah, I think $39.99. It kind of does,
because you're paying for time. You're paying for entertainment.
Yeah, but then by that rule, Assassin's Creed should be £120-30 for the hours you could get out of that.
Yeah.
Fortnite should be £1 million because you can play it forever, apparently.
But yeah, but if you like compare it to like other entertainment where it's just purely narrative based, £60 that will for a game that will see you know what, it'll see it a week.
Yeah,
compared to a Netflix subscription.
Yeah, just keeps going.
It suddenly starts feeling expensive. But I'm interested in the game, but it's probably going to be a PlayStation Plus play for me eventually, I hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same.
Yeah. Let's quickly get through these last few stories then. Croc, Legend of the Gobos. Gobos? I do that every
really
time.
knows. Gobos.
Yeah, no one knows. It's getting a PC and console release date. It gets it. Hey, so when does it come out?
Soon. 2nd of April.
Another game. 2nd of April, you can play some Croc. Are you going to be playing Croc, Chris?
But no, because it's only digital. And, well, it's only digital for now. They've said there'll be a physical version coming later on in the year. However, by nature of being an old game, and I have the PS1 down here, I'm so much more inclined to want this remastered version in physical form to like not put side by side, but you know what I mean. I've got the original on the shelf. I don't want the new one in a digital version. Again, I'm sure it's keeping the costs down in terms of the remasters originally. We've seen it with other titles like Alan Wake, but yeah, 2nd of April looks great. It's more 3D platforming resurrection from the past, and it's an IP that cute little character. 20 years on. But I'll be hanging fire for the physical one for me. Yeah,
and it's on basically everything. I feel like this is a kind of a limited run games, probably pick it up or something kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, remember the resurrected Argonaut games just to make it.
Yeah, are they realistically how many copies are they expecting to sell?
Yeah.
Probably not that many, so it may be a case of actually having to physically manufacture the discs and the distribution that comes with that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably would make it not profitable, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it's up for £30 at launch, so yeah.
Quick ones at the end. God of War is getting a 2nd season, and it's confirmed by Amazon, even though we haven't seen season 1.
I was going to say I really enjoyed season 1, and that person they've not cast to play Kratos yet. It's ticking over well.
Have they not even cast Kratos?
No, they've not even announced who's going to play him. So it's just this weird thing. Yeah, it was the showrunner just confirmed, like, we're doing 2 seasons. They've been greenlit. He said he tried.
Right.
He also said he tried to play the games and stopped because he couldn't figure out modern controllers. I'm not a gamer. Filling me with positive praise this one.
To be fair, you don't have to be a gamer to be a good actor. You could literally just sit down and watch someone else.
Yeah.
I feel like this one of them, if I'm the director and the showrunner of a God of War TV show, I'm buying the bloody guy a PlayStation going, you're playing it? That's part of the job. I know you're not a gamer, but you need to play it.
At least watch the cutscenes or have someone talk you through it. Like, there should be a job role out there that is definitely like video game to movie/TV adaptation assistant, and your job is to sit them down and go like, look, I'll play it with you, we'll watch it, like when you see pictures like Peter Jackson in the editing room in that dark studio room in New Zealand where he sat for half of his life and watched other people do the edits, do the music, do the clip, and he just sat and observed it all and kind of said what he wanted in, what he didn't want in. Yeah, and talked about it and planned it out. So this guy's like the former Battlestar Galactica producer. And again, he can't fly spaceships or speak alien languages, but he made a show about that. So let's give him his credit.
Yeah, true. But ideally, it's an ideal situation would be you give it to someone who's passionate about God of War. But there again, he might have spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos, watching people stream the games, and goes, you know what, I have a very solid understanding what these games are. And ultimately, the journey Kratos goes in, because if you want to have this an ongoing series, you probably want to know where Kratos ends up at the end of Ragnarok when you're making probably your first season, which is probably going to cover the first game. You probably want to know that arc.
I mean, they might be doing Ancient Greece, they might be doing original, where there's
that's what
as much story.
With the first game, I meant the God of War.
Oh, I thought you meant like 2018.
Greece. Yeah, so like it has that full knowledge of the arc he goes through.
Yeah, and he might just need to know like the Greek gods and the whole concept of he kills them. The thing that always worries me with these things is, unlike The Last of Us, there's no mention of like Cory Barlog's involved, or like the original creators, or like is there a partnership with the studio over at Santa Monica? Are they like giving feedback and stuff? So it's like, okay, we'll see, but it's been signed off. Actually, I should say, it does say right at the bottom of the article, sorry, Sony Santa Monica's Jeff Ketchum, no relation to Ash Ketchum, is a co-executive producer. So I take all that back. They are involved, which is
so there's an executive from Sony Santa Monica on the production team.
Yeah,
at least overseeing things. So it's not Cory Barlog directly, but probably doesn't need to be.
Yeah, and you know what? Amazon did amazing with Fallout, another game adaptation. So I'm more than happy to give them time. I just think Kratos on the screen, because of the nature of him being like a big, massive, brooding tank of a man, how that looks, especially like the world, the like mythological worlds that he goes between, it's like, you know, like we said about Horizon, almost like the budget feels like it has to be higher, and I don't know if the show's going to get that to make it fully realised.
Yeah, and I feel like if they're going back to the ancient Greece stuff, they need to give him, Kratos, a bit more depth, because he's pretty much just an angry dude through the entire run of them games.
They'll have learned a lot from the last two games.
That's why I kind of feel like the Kratos that you play in Ragnarok, there's a lot more. There's a lot more to him. So it's understanding that Kratos is there in the original games. But our last story for the week is Pokemon have finally teamed up with Lego.
Yes.
This feels time. Like, it does. It feels like one of them partnerships. When I was reading the article, I'm like, really? There's never been Pokemon Lego before.
Hey, we didn't have Mario up until a few years ago. It's just it's Nintendo and stuff branching out. But yeah, it does seem like a match made in heaven almost. Little cute creatures, make them out of Lego, put them in Lego balls. Do it. Well, make the gyms.
They've announced a multi-year partnership, and they will be coming out in 2026. So, do you think we could see a Pokemon Lego game?
Well, we know we're seeing a Pokemon. We know we're seeing a Lego Game Boy, if you remember.
Yeah, but the Lego Group and the Pokemon Company International
you mean like
is the partnership.
Game, right?
So, like a Lego Horizon,
like a Horizon,
Pokemon, as well as physical merchandise.
I mean, I hate to say it, but as long as it's not just stuck on Switch, which I know will never happen. I mean, the Switch 2 will be out by then, so yeah, I could totally see that.
Yeah, Lego Horizon wasn't though. That wasn't just stuck on PlayStation.
Yeah, but that was PlayStation's IP, not Nintendo being extra protective over Pokemon.
And to be honest, I think even if it is stuck on the Switch 2, I don't think that's going to be a problem for its sales.
No, not at all. But if you tell me we get like a Lego Horizon style adventure where it's that like, not fixed camera angle, but like slightly risen camera angle at a distance, and I'm running around in a world where there's Lego Pokemon, and I'm, I guess, fighting them in some way, shape, or form, but just like with that extra gloss and a variation of what we're familiar with, that could be great. Maybe
you have, in like the old Lego games where you have a massive roster of characters so you can switch between, rather than just 4, what you got in Lego Horizon. Maybe that's just the first 150 Pokemon.
Yeah, could be a shout.
So you can switch between them. So you got your different types to do different stuff in the environment. I think there's a game in there.
Oh, yes.
But that is all we have time for this week, and we like to end the show every single week with this video game in history. This day in video game history. I cannot talk. Yeah, I am. March the 21st, Chris. What came out?
A lot. What a day, March 21st. Let's go back 26 years to 1999. Pokemon Snap came out on the N64. Speaking of Pokemon, we also had 24 years ago in 2001, the Game Boy Advance.
We did.
Another fantastic piece of hardware there, seminal as part of the industry. 20 years ago in 2005, we had the legendary Time Splitters Future Perfect. Recently had that remaster release that came out on PlayStation with trophies. We also got 11 years ago in 2014, Infamous Second Son. The last entry in the... Well, not the last entry, because we had First Light, which was a standalone game, I guess, so we have had that. But yeah, Infamous Second Light. We had the infamous Mass Effect Andromeda come out 8 years ago in 2017. It's been 8 years.
That's kind of one of them games that's went on like a bit of a redemption arc. It wasn't the Mass Effect people wanted it to be, but it's now got a bit more of a cult following. I think that's people settled on. It's not as bad as we thought it was.
Yeah, and we've been waiting so long for another Mass Effect game. We'll give it its credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, the once Google Stadia exclusive Chaya came out 2 years ago, not on Stadia, on PlayStation 4 and 5 as an exclusive, if you remember.
Yeah.
It went from Stadia exclusive to PlayStation exclusive because, if you recall, PlayStation stole it from under Google's nose at one of the events. We had the marketing, we had the advert for Stadia, and then it all got pulled, and then all of a sudden it was going exclusive to PlayStation. Don't know what deals happened behind the scenes, but it came out, it got good reviews. I played it, I enjoyed a little bit of it, but yeah, it was a very whimsical, fun game in a similar vein to Kena Bridge of Spirits. But yeah, it's a great day in video game history, Richie. March 21st. I
do want to move on to March 22nd, though, because we have Resident Evil 29 years ago. We have Resident Evil 23 years ago, their GameCube remake. Mm-hmm. God of War 20 years ago.
The original God of War.
Yeah.
2005. PSP, Metal Gear Acid. Shout out to that 20 years ago as well.
The Sims Medieval, which I didn't even know existed.
No, I've never heard of that. It's probably an expansion pack.
And Rise of the Ronin, which came out 1 year ago.
Wow, a year ago already. And
I feel like that was one of them games that just came and went. It didn't quite...
No.
It was... No. Yeah.
And while we're in the vein, I want to get it in there. 23rd of March, just because we're playing Split Fiction. A Way Out. Hazelight's first game came out 7 years ago today. Nice. In 2018. So here we are.
Great
Split
game.
Fiction.
Great game.
Doing fantastic. Way Out. Great game. And Hazelight doing great things. Love to see it. You love to see it.
We do indeed. But that is all we have time for this week. If you've liked the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're kept in the all fantastic content here at GamerGuildTV. We'll be returning to The Last of Us on our weekly live stream, and stay tuned for more news about Pokemon Blue. I have no idea when the next episode will be out at the time of recording, but I hopefully it won't take me an entire year plus, like Ocarina of Time did.
Hopefully not.
Thank you very much for watching. We have a Discord server and store. All the links and stuff that you need are in the description below. My name's been Richie.
I've been Chris.
GG everyone. Goodbye.